Welcome back to the Midwest Minute. I'm your host, Ross Thompson, and boy, do I have a good one for you guys today. We're going to be covering topics such as Thomas Massie's race in Kentucky, Donald Trump, the Epstein files, some fun, interesting Israel facts, maybe going to conclude with some Charlie Kirk info. So you're going to want to listen and watch the whole entire episode. Make sure if you are not subscribed, subscribe on whatever you're listening to. I am on podcast form, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. So those two places, as well as YouTube and Rumble, the usual. So yeah, we're just gonna dive right into it today. Last week, or depending on when this video comes out, Thomas Massie lost his primary bid in Kentucky's 4th District. He was the incumbent. He lost by 10 points to Ed Gallerin, who had 54,000 votes, or 58,000 votes, and Thomas Massie had 48,000 votes. Previously, Thomas Massie has won that district for the House of Representatives for Kentucky 7 times. This time, he lost. That's a lot of times winning, 14 years, being in the House. Now you may ask yourself, why? What changed? Why did he lose this district in Kentucky? Well, we're going to go over some of the facts today and analyze it in a fair way, I'd say. A fair way. So first, we're going to go over Ed Gallerin, the Republican nominee for the 4th District now. That'll be voted on in November. He was a former Navy SEAL. He runs on a lot of conservative values, just like Thomas Massie did. But really all he was a warm body for the Trump administration to go after Thomas Massie. Now, if you follow this race at all, there's a lot of controversy on the amount of money spent, because this election did break records, and we'll touch on that a little bit here later. But really, the Trump administration, Thomas Massie has been basically a thorn in the side of the Trump administration for this second term, and Trump wanted him gone, plain and simple. Okay, that's politics. So who they come up with? Like I said, this warm body Navy SEAL, Ed Gallerin. Now on paper he looks good. No, let's not get it wrong. He does look good, but we can't really misconstrue what happened. He refused to debate Massie, who Massie was publicly wanting to debate to show both sides and probably attack Gallerin, Ed. And honestly, on Ed's part, it was really smart, especially if you look at how the campaign was financed and how vicious the attacks were on Massie. That, yeah, it was worked in Ed's benefit not to debate Massie. Now, would we have loved to see that debate? Yeah, I think it would have been really fun and would have been good for the voters in that district. Ed has floated in the past, reinstating the draft for the youth. That's also a very controversial thing to be, stating now, especially with his age, and when we look at the war, in Ukraine, and especially the war in Iran now, that's maybe getting wrapped up, maybe not getting wrapped up. There's peace deals flowing either way, and that's a whole another topic, because Trump's saying, "Oh, we're winning in Iran." Well, what is the definition of winning? Before that, we had freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, and now it's kind of blocked up. So if you want to call winning going in there, wasting a lot of money, and then still losing what we already had and kind of getting nowhere, that's an argument for another day. We'll go with that, but hopefully that gets wrapped up very soon. But when we look at the election party, especially after the primary, there was videos from Ed's after party and very little enthusiasm and very little people that showed up. And that is kind of a telling tale of how this election has went for his campaign. Is I'm not saying there was voter fraud, but I'm just saying is not much enthusiasm for him compared to Massie, even though he lost. Now, why was Massie being attacked by the Trump administration? Well, the main points people have been making with him is he does not vote along party lines. And now, I don't like, how do I want to frame this? I don't like the notion that just because you're a Republican or just because you're a Democrat, you have to vote with your party. We see that with John Fetterman. He's a Democrat, and he regularly votes with conservatives on various topics. Not always, but he does cross lines. And we see Republicans do the same thing too, especially in Thomas Massie's case. It's not necessarily the voting across lines that's bad. It's bad or good. It's the reasons why, right? I want to look at why are you voting one way or another, and then judge you based on that or based on what you're voting on. So I don't think it's great just to begin with. If like I said, if you're Republican and you always vote Republican, like that's good. But you also have to have a free mind and take each vote with, you gotta think through your vote and why, and you have to come up with that reason. You don't want to just say, oh, you're Republican, you're voting, and that stems not even in the Congress, but all trickles down. The presidency, or we, the people, voting for the presidency, state and local elections. It's just because they're right or left, we're voting on them for their policy and really what they're going to do in office, because you can campaign on one issue, and then when you get in office, not necessarily flip-flop, but not really get it done or half-ass it, and it's, okay, well, yeah, we did make a mistake, and you have to get out of there. So, when we look at Thomas Massie, his voting record was the main reason why the Trump administration wanted him gone. And this stems from a while. And really, the main reason was he voted against the one big, beautiful bill. He also voted against... Actually, we'll go on that. We'll go on that conversation first before we get into more. So the one big, beautiful bill. What are some of the pros? What are some of the cons? And why did Massie vote against it? As we know, it did get passed. So in the end, it didn't matter, but it was a little tougher without his vote and support. But it still passed. So some of the pros: lower the permanent tax cut for families and businesses. Major increase in border security and immigration enforcement funding. No tax on tips. No tax on overtime and Social Security was also promised. Increased military and national defense spending. Cuts to welfare programs and added work requirements for Medicaid and SNAP. Out of the increase to border security and immigration enforcement, $170 billion more got appropriated to that, with $75 million going directly to ICE. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of taxpayer money. And what have we seen since then? Right? The Trump administration and Trump himself campaigned on mass deportations. That was the word. Mass deportations. At the GOP convention, I think they had flyers, or not flyers, but sticks that they held up that said mass deportations. Well, we're still waiting. We're about a year and a half in, and we're still waiting. We saw a little bit of it, not even a little bit, really, but it was all over the news in the Minneapolis. That was pretty close to home. And what, two protesters got killed, and we're just, job's done. No, let's not do that anymore. Yeah, it was tragic. Those people shouldn't have died, but they did. It's not great. But think of all the other people dying around the world. It's like, okay, yeah, we don't quit wars because a couple people are dying. It's you campaign on this, and most importantly, you appropriated money for it, and now we're backing off. So why did we spend the money on it if we're backing off? It's not as visual anymore. And they just came out with the deportation numbers, and it was really lackluster. And pretty soon, all the millions of illegals that came in under the Biden administration, they're going to get given amnesty. Pretty soon, that's going to be in the back of our mind. Oh, next war, it's coming up. Oh, election cycle, yeah, so that's kind of over with. And just another thing, you promised that, and where's it been? It's been slow. They're still doing it. Don't get me wrong, but they're not really going hard at it. And whether you like that or not, that's what they campaigned on, and they got voted in for it. One of the reasons, obviously, and they appropriated the money for it. So what are we doing? Okay, some of the cons of the big beautiful bill. It adds trillions to the national debt and increases the deficits. It expands federal government power instead of shrinking it. There's a lot of libertarians out there that voted for this, and, well, Medicaid cuts, could hurt rural hospitals, and that could be a political damage to Republicans. We'll see how that works out, and we'll take it as it comes. So Thomas Massie voted no for this bill, and that was just a complete, or not a complete list of pros and cons, but there's a lot of stuff in the bill. Bills are huge these days, which are a mess and shouldn't happen, but that's the times we live in. He didn't vote in favor along with this bill because of the national debt problem. That's what Thomas Massie said. He can't. He basically said, I can't vote for this bill because of how much money it doesn't address the debt problems we have in America. And he's kind of got a point, in a sense. Like, how many people do we hear running as fiscal conservatives or cut government spending, and then a big bill like this comes in that gets rid of the debt ceiling, adds trillions of dollars in debt over the next couple of years, and they follow right in lockstep, and just vote it through. Now, if they're going to succumb to their basic principles and basic ideologies, what's to say they're not going to succumb to a different vote that goes against, what they campaigned for? Or, if they're not going to hold up their promises in Congress, then what's the point? Right? What's the point? We need some pushback. We need to start getting this stuff figured out before it's too late. And I'm afraid it is too late, but a lot of future left, hopefully. So Thomas Massie voted against that because of the debt problem. And the argument, this is where I was going with it. The argument was being made that this is Trump's, Trump won the election even with the popular vote. And this was his big piece of legislation that gets stuff done for his administration. And it's like, okay, that's true. We do want this to get passed. We do want some of the stuff coming through. But like I said before, the money spent for ICE and added to the debt, it's like, okay, at what point do we start looking at Congress, looking at ourselves and saying, yeah, we're going to have to stop getting all these big bills through and just keep pushing the money down to the future, because pretty soon, the future bill is gonna get paid. It's gonna have to get paid, whether by money or whether by war or all the above. It's gonna come due at some point, probably sooner rather than later. And it's just not good kicking the can down the road, and that's what we see year in and year out from both sides of the party too, or both sides. Republican and Democrat. They just keep kicking the can down. So a lot of people were butthurt that he voted no, but like I said, it still got passed. Boo-hoo, right? People have different opinions. He's sticking to his moral ground on fiscal conservatives. So be it. And this wasn't a one-off. He also voted against the full year Appropriation Act for the same reason. He voted against Ukraine aid package twice for the same reason. Why are we giving money to them? Voted against in 2024, 1.2 trillion spending package. 23 voted against the debt ceiling compromise. And that's just his voting record. So it wasn't just because it was the Trump administration. He has a record of voting against big spending bills. So we can chalk that up to him. Now, what else do we know Thomas Massie for? Why else is he a thorn in Trump's side? Well, it's because of the Epstein files. Let's just say it how it is. It really is because of the Epstein files. And before we get into that a little bit, I built up a little timeline on the Epstein files and kind of how this went down, so we don't get this misconstrued on how it went down. Because I see a lot of stuff on X after the election and saying, oh, Thomas Massie is a pedo protector, and it's like, okay, if that's the role we want to go, clearly we don't have memory past 5 minutes. It's literally happened within a year, folks. It's not that hard. And a lot of people maybe don't know the full timeline, so I'll give you my timeline of how things went, and then you can form your own opinions accordingly. Okay, so we'll start from the beginning. Well, not from the beginning. We're going to fast forward a lot because this was a long trench, and this is going to be a quick overview on how the files come to be. So we're going to start in 2019 when Epstein died in Trump's custody. People forget that. 2019, Trump was the president, and he died under Trump's, it's not necessarily Trump's watch, but he died under the Trump administration. That's just worth noting, okay? Now we're going to fast forward to 2023 when the Epstein files started getting leaked that Trump was in it a lot and mentioning our president, and that's kind of when the conspiracy theorists started coming hard. And then in 2024, June of 2024, when Trump was hard on the campaign trail, nearing the end, during an interview, Trump said he would be inclined to release the Epstein file or Epstein-related documents. But it is worth mentioning, he said there could be a lot of phony stuff in the file. So you see how he's gearing up for all this stuff of a hoax and stuff. And the Epstein files have become, at that time especially, a major talking point among conservatives, and saying, okay, there's something up here. Let's get these files out. Maybe indict some people. Just see what's going on, because it's a lot of the stuff isn't adding up. A lot of people out there, theorizing he was murdered, or is he still alive, living somewhere else, or did he really or did he really commit suicide? We don't know. That was the pressure. Then again, in September of 2024, Trump's on a podcast again, and he mentioned that many big people were connected to Epstein, and he would review the files again for release. So now he's gaining traction on these Epstein files, saying, oh, there's big names, big people in these files, and now people are demanding more. It's like, okay, we really want to see it. We really want to see the files and see what's in them. Okay, Trump gets elected and gets in office, and now I remember this day, February 27th in 2025. DOJ releases Epstein files phase 1, and I remember this very clearly. On X, I saw a video of these right-wing influencers coming out of the White House carrying these big binders above their head, and it visibly says phase 1 on these binders. Jack Posobiec was one of the notable ones. There was a couple others. And phase 1. And when I hear phase 1, what does that imply to me? Well, that implies there's going to be at least a phase 2, right? Otherwise it wouldn't be labeled phase 1, maybe phase 2 and 3. So that's what that implies. Phase 1. All right. So the files finally get released online, and all these, not Discord. Anyways, all these online sleuths, they're going through and it's like, actually, a lot of the stuff in the phase 1 is what we already knew and what was already released. So really, nothing new came out. So then Pam Bondi, got under a lot of heat, and she resorted to, well, the FBI gave me these files. I don't know, blame it on the FBI. So then we're like, okay, well now, we want phase 2 here. Like, let's keep on going. Not much is going on. May 8th, 2025, a House task force demanded broader disclosure of the Epstein files from Pam Bondi. Both parties were joined in on criticizing the delays. Then also too, I remember this. I think it was like a Sunday night. The DOJ and the FBI issued a joint memo stating the investigators found no verified Epstein client list. Mind you, this was after Pam Bondi said in an interview that the list was sitting on her desk for review. The list was sitting on her desk for review. So you hear that. Like, okay, we might be getting somewhere. Out of the middle of the night. No, it wasn't the middle of the night, but Sunday night of all times, no client list found. So now people were ramped up. Maybe not all of America, but especially on the online forum. It's like, okay, what is going on? Trump said he was going to release the files. He didn't. Trump, July 12th, publicly defends Pam Bondi. He said, it was iconic. He's like, Epstein files. Who's still talking about the Epstein files? It's like, brother. It's really like, brother. What are we doing? You said you were going to release the Epstein files. You didn't release anything. Of course, we're still going to be talking about it. Of course, we're still going to. And this is where Thomas Massie comes into play. Right here, July 15th. Thomas Massie and Democrat from California, Ro Khanna, came together and they came together to compel the release of more of the Epstein file documents. And a lot more Republicans began criticizing, saying, okay, yeah, what is going on? And then also, Mike Johnson, same July time, Mike Johnson adjourned Congress a day early to avoid an Epstein vote to release the files for the summer recess. Day early, just, go take your summer break. We don't want to vote on this right now. Then what happened? A government shutdown. Nobody cared about the Epstein files anymore. So you think. Finally, Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna got their way. They finally got the Epstein Files Transparency Act on the House to vote. And it passed almost unanimously to release the files. And I was thinking about it here. It's like, why was that? Why is there a lot of pushback, but it passes unanimously? Well, let's think about it from a logical perspective. If you vote against releasing the files, what does that tell to your voter base, saying, oh yeah, okay, why are you protecting these child predators? Why are you trying to protect this? So of course, if it goes to a vote, they have to pass it. Like it has to pass. And it did. So then on December 19th, that was on November 18th when it passes, December 19th, and a couple days after, they finally released thousands of Epstein-related records, which were heavily redacted. Photos with Epstein and Trump, flight logs, FBI tips, but nothing was really done. Nothing was, nobody indicted. Just more files, not much to see here. Okay, getting released. January 30th of 2026, new tranche of Epstein files are released. References to possible visits to Mar-a-Lago. A lot of stuff about Trump, which was the president. In the March of 2026, released interview notes involving allegations against Trump. So that's kind of how it went down. Now, what can we take away from this? What can we take away from the whole Epstein timeline? Is there anything else? No. First off, I don't believe Trump is a child rapist. I don't. I personally don't. If it somehow comes out that he is, stand fully corrected. Scum of the earth. But with the evidence that's laid out, I really don't believe he is a child rapist. So we're going to put that out there. So what we can take away is this. Trump promised the release of the Epstein files. Got into office. Started twiddling his thumbs. Didn't release much. Released a little bit. Already was released. Said it was good enough. People got mad. So Thomas Massie saw the opportunity, swooped in, got these files released for good or bad. So really, Trump did it to himself. He either should have had better PR, which is Trump. We already know his PR is the worst. And should have just kept his mouth shut and didn't release them. So be it. But you don't say you're going to release them and then don't. Like that looks really bad on your part. And it did look bad, and it still does look bad on his part and his administration. Now, are they covering up for some of his friends? Maybe. Maybe some of his donors? Those are questions that still need to be answered. But Trump was very not happy with Thomas Massie for this reason. Now, after a little bit of that information, let's circle back to the election that happened last week. Now, I'm not a Thomas Massie glazer. I'm not a Thomas Massie lover, per se, because it is true. He did use the Epstein files for political gain. But he wouldn't have had to if Trump would have just followed through with his promise. Right? Like I said in the beginning, Thomas Massie was in Congress for 14 years. He could have pushed to release the files during Biden's presidency. He very well could have. Anyone could have. But he didn't. Pretty soon at the end, Trump promised to. And this is the way I would see it. I said, okay, if Trump promised to, we're going to get this administration. Okay, there's no need to push to get the files released because we're going to vote the Trump administration in, and he's going to release the files along with the JFK files, the MLK files, the alien files, which were just released a little bit, which is just slop for the plate, but what have you, they released them. So that was the promise, and I do remember that talk. It was a lot of social media talk, but that was what it is. So, Trump clearly did not like Thomas Massie. Like I said from the beginning, Massie was a thorn in the Trump administration. So what makes this election so different? Well, for starters, it was the most expensive primary in history. And I do believe we're going to see a lot more expensive elections as the times come. So let's talk about the election and some interesting facts surrounding the election. Ed Gowron pause. The district as a whole, Kentucky District 4, we'll start here, saw $32.6 million in ad spending. $32.6 million in ad spending for a race that only produced a little over 100,000 votes. Less than 6% of name contributions for both candidates came from within the district and state. Less than 6% came from Kentucky District 4 and the state of Kentucky for both candidates, mind you. Now, when I looked that up, it was Thomas Massie had like 9% and Ed was at like 4 or 5%. So take that as you will. Massie collected $1 million from donations under $200 to Galleron's $184,000 from donations under $200. And what does that signify? Well, that signifies people could be just, yeah, I like Thomas Massie, here's $20, $50, $100, $5. Massie collected $1 million through those donations. Who makes donations like that? People like me. I didn't. But like workers, average workers, your average American that's maybe engaged in politics and maybe $20, $50. That's who donated to Massie. $1 million compared to $184,000. That's a very big difference. Now, Ed, he was propped up by about $15 million from the Israeli lobby. This was from AIPAC Tracker. There's a lot of speculation on how much money. It was a lot from the Israel lobby and outside donations or outside donors. Ed was either backed up with ads or just ads attacking Massie and Hull by 3 billionaires. 3 billionaires donated to his campaign or spent money for either directly or indirectly for his campaign. One of the people was Miriam Adelson, who is of Jewish ethnicity. She donated and supported Ed. And why is her name relevant? Well, she directly and indirectly spent $250 million on Trump's campaign. $250 million. Now imagine the sway that could pull on Donald Trump, who loves money. $250 million is a lot of dollars. Not saying too many things, but could that buy you a couple words with Trump from time to time? Maybe some thoughts and opinions. Maybe not. But that's a lot of money to spend on Trump. Now let's look at AIPAC. What is AIPAC? What does it stand for, right? Well, AIPAC is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. And I went to their website, and their slogan, motto, if you will, says this: AIPAC is an American grassroots organization that works to strengthen the U.S.-Israel partnership. Our mission is to encourage and persuade the U.S. government to enact specific policies that create a strong, enduring, and mutually beneficial relationship with our ally, Israel. Now, that was straight from their website. That's nothing I made up. That is a fact. Take it to the bank. You can look it up yourself. Right from their website. They were one of the key contributors to Ed's campaign. Arguably, what put him over the finish line. This was a direct tweet from AIPAC that night. Direct tweet. I'll put it up. Ed Galleron's victory in KY, Kentucky. KY is slang for Kentucky. And Clay Fuller's win in Georgia, GA is slang for Georgia, ensures two outspoken pro-Israel voices are positioned to fill seats previously held by outspoken detractors, Thomas Massie and Marjorie, all right, MTG. Our community was proud to help pro-Israel candidates win these races. So that's also a fact. 8:45 p.m., May 19th, 2026. I have a screenshot. That's their words, not mine. So when we start connecting the dots here, some money here, some money over here, Epstein files, voting against Trump. You know, can we connect these dots at any point? Is it wrong to connect these dots? I don't think so. Is it wrong to say? They said it themselves. Thomas Massie was a detractor. What does that mean for them? Does that mean he was a detractor from fiscal conservatism? For U.S. national debt? Is that what they mean? I don't think so. No, I think he was a detractor to the pro-Israel cause. And that's what sent the Israel lobby coming to District 4 and spending millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to get rid of him. Now, what does that signify to the world? To the country, I should say, because why would the world care? What does that signify to me? What does that should signify to you? And what does that signify to your neighbor? Well, to me, it shows that if you have enough money, you can essentially buy an election. You can come in with all your propaganda and buy an election seat. Now, 10 points is a lot. 10,000 votes. Could you say without the Israel lobby money and all the outside money, who would have won? I don't know. But when we look at small donations and when we look at the demographics, this was an interesting too. I couldn't find specific, so take this with a grain of salt, but I've seen people talk about, I don't know where they get the information from, that like the 45 and younger crowd overwhelmingly voted for Massie, and people older than that voted for Ed. And I thought to myself, I was like, why could this be a little bit, maybe? Well, might get some flack for saying that if people are watching this far into the podcast. But when I look at Facebook, it's people fall for especially older people that aren't around technology as much. Not their fault, but they're not. They fall for the most ChatGPT AI slop ever. I say, oh, you see this dog dancing? It's like, yeah, no. A dog doesn't hit the cha-cha. For example, that's a bit extreme. But you get the point. And even me, it's hard to tell from time to time if people, or if things I see as AI. And I'm not saying, okay, well, first of all, that will bring me to another point before I get off. They were running ads with Thomas Massie walking with AOC and Ilhan Omar. It's like I said, it's people will look at that and say, why is he actually walking with them? Yeah, he walked with Ro Khanna. That's a real picture. But that was to get released Epstein files. So we take people that are easily susceptible to and vulnerable to these ad campaigns, this propaganda, and you start injecting the market with all this money for campaign and ads. It's like no wonder why they're going to vote one way or another. People are going to look at this election and other elections, primaries, and I already see it now. It's like, oh, Trump's got a hold, still got a hold on the Republican Party, and it's like, okay, but he also has the hold of a lot of money. a lot of backing, too. And that just goes to show that money can buy votes. People pointing this out get labeled an A word. An A word with a Semite at the end. Okay, that's pretty blunt. An anti-Semite. You connect the dots and you say, if you say Thomas Massie lost because of Jewish money, you might get labeled an anti-Semite. And like I said, he did lose, and he lost by 10 points. Could that be the cause? Maybe, maybe not. But I believe it was. I mean, I believe that when you ingest that much money, or inject that much money, yeah, you're going to flip a lot of votes. Especially on a district that he's won 7 times. And just think of the headlines. He might have voted no for the big... All right, for example, let's say he votes no on Bill X, right? A fake bill. Bill X. And it adds trillions of dollars in debt, right? It's really bad. It's a really kind of a gross bill. But let's say the one good thing in the bill is it stops, kids from being transed by doctors. Underage kids from being transgendered. What have you, for example. He votes no for the bill because he doesn't like the spending. He doesn't like all this bad stuff in this bill. Well, what can your political opponent say? And what do you think they're going to say? Oh, Thomas Massie, he wants your kids to be trans. He voted no for this. This bill could have stopped your kids from being trans, and he voted no. Well, actually, it's true in a sense, but that's not why he voted no. He voted no for all the other 90% of the bad stuff in the bill. And that's why big bills are so manipulative. Because when you hear stuff like, oh, he voted yes for this, no for this, it's not that simple. They don't put one-issue bills on the House floor anymore. There's a lot of stuff in a bill. And if a lot of it goes against your core values, it's like, yeah, you're going to probably vote no on the bill. So you can put that slop out. And people are going to fall for it. And that's the thing with politics is you have to open up your mind. And once you start seeing this, you can't unsee it. You can't unsee it. That's how that works. It's how it works. It's a nasty game, but it really is how it works. So in a sense, to really just widen or to really condense it all into one is Thomas Massie lost because he was not a Trump loyalist. Now let me get this some things cleared up too, especially if you're this far in. Number 1, I like Trump. I do. I'm a Republican. I don't like a lot of the things he's doing. I think he's made a lot of mistakes. I think he needs to course correct. I am skeptical, but I'm not a Trump hater. Number 2, I also like Massie, but I'm not going to also bend over backwards for him. He did use Epstein for political gain. And I think he is going to make this election loss as a push, maybe to presidency, maybe to something. Governor, maybe. Who knows? And I'm not on his train either. I'm just pointing out the facts of what I see and what I researched and what was so interesting about this historic election. So I'm not on one side or another. I don't like to be on one side or another. Like I said earlier, I don't vote. I don't like voting in line, and I don't like picking sides. And I wouldn't say I like flip-flopping either, but it's like I like trying to be a free thinker. I try to unsee things from both sides, analyze it, connect the dots a little bit. Because is that wrong? Is that just so wrong when they literally say they're proud to get these pro-Israel candidates in. It's like, okay, well, that implies he was anti-Israel, and that's kind of why he ousted him, which is fine. That's their prerogative. But don't label us or get mad at other people for pointing that out. And people point it out, and they're like, "Whoa, it's all Americans voting, or it's all Americans donating to AIPAC." It's like, I don't care who votes for it. It's American Israeli. I read you their mission. Strengthen U.S.-Israel partnership. Look, we still can't split. We can't split that. Okay. I'm not saying the partnership's bad. There's a lot of reservations there. Maybe we'll get into it. You know, I don't want to get deplatformed this early. No, I'm sorry. But to condense it all down in one, as I was saying, is Thomas Massie did not fall in lockstep with Donald Trump. It did not show pure loyalty, which I think is bogus. But that's what happened. He lost. So be it. And here's another thing. 2, I like to add. If you live in Kentucky District 4 and you did not vote, you did not show up to vote, you get no say. I'm sorry. You had one job. You get no say, bad or good. If you don't vote in elections, guys, what are we doing? What are we doing if we don't vote in elections? That's all we have left. That's all we have left. And what do I mean by elections? Yes, I want you to vote for the president, but it's not, guys, it's not just the presidential election that's important. It's the whole entire election. Yes, the president is important. They're going to make the policies for the whole entire country. But it's the school boards. It's the county commissioner elections. It's your local elections, your local state elections. That's what really shows up. That's what really gets unnoticed, and that's what really is more important. Because if you want to affect change, you have to vote. And if you just vote for the presidency and kind of skip and just go, oh, okay, yeah. Well, that's so very counterintuitive because, yeah, the president can only do so much, right? Guys, we have to vote. June 9th in North Dakota. Every election. If you can, you should. And if not, then so be it. You don't have to vote. But don't be complaining that much that, okay, well, you had the opportunity to. And you might say, oh, I'm just one vote. Well, if 10,000 people are thinking that, there's 10,000 votes. It adds up. It really does. And if that's one thing you can take away from this whole thing, it's we just have to be proactive and vote. That's all we got left. Now, I did promise some Charlie Kirk stuff, so we'll get into that too a little bit. It's kind of debating whether to do this or not, but I will since I did some research on it. Speaking of Trump's loyalty, it clearly is really a one-way street for the most part with Trump. And the biggest example of this I can see is really Charlie Kirk. Now, Charlie Kirk built Turning Point USA from the ground up, the largest conservative youth organization in the country. There's one basically at most colleges around, and I can confidently say he probably single-handedly won Trump the youth vote, especially men, with his college campus tours, and his fierce debates of the left. He had a strong mentorship on a lot of young men, I feel like. I watched him too. I loved his debates, his dialogue. He was a very smart man. Unfortunately, he was assassinated on September 10th this past year, 2025. There's a lot of drama around his assassination too. I will not get into that. We'll see how the trial goes. A lot of questions that are still really need to be answered. Some weird things going on. But the main point is he was assassinated for dialogue on issues. And supposedly, him and Trump are good friends. Especially Donald Trump Jr. Some reports said they were like brothers. And what did we see from Trump after the assassination of Charlie Kirk? Yes, he gave out a 4 or 5 minute speech afterwards, or that night. But he really took a moment of where he could unite the country, maybe. Turn down the rhetoric. Mind you, this was a couple months after he got hit in the air down in Butler, Pennsylvania. Whatever happened to that stuff, huh? Now what? Look how many more. I'm losing count of how many assassination attempts. But folks, ballroom. Remember it. I sure have. I hear it every day. Instead of turning the temperature down, he actually ramped it way up in his speech. And even at Charlie Kirk's memorial, Erica Kirk famously said she forgives the shooter. Trump comes out and says, "Oh, I wouldn't have. I hate him, you know." It's like, bud, oh my gosh. Let's get it together a little bit. You see him turning away against his own voters and stuff what Charlie supported. They've not indicted anybody for violent crimes or their political rhetoric. And this kind of tells it all. And I do remember this. And for a disclaimer, if you've seen the video, I think Reinforce 1 was on, so it was kind of loud. And you can chalk this up to him not hearing the question fully. But nonetheless, this still does fit Trump's personality kind of to a T. Trump was asked outside the White House how he was holding up the past 3 days following the death of his friend Charlie Kirk. A reporter asked him this. In his response, word for word, "I think very good. Oh, and by the way, right there, you see all the trucks. They just started construction on the new ballroom." And he continues, "Folks, the ballroom." Now, like I said, he might not have heard the question because what type of response is that? I don't know. Just the stuff with Kash Patel, it's just, what are we doing? And it's just, we just want some loyalty. And Trump wants loyalty, but what does he show for it himself? I don't know. That might cover it for now until I probably remember something I wanted to say afterwards. It's usually how these episodes go. Oh, my mouth is dry. I don't know. This might be a long one. I don't know how. 53 minutes. This will be a long one. Thank you. I applaud you if you stayed this long. I think by far out of all my videos, maybe the religion one is still above this one. But this is the most consequential one. And really tells a story of how America is turning. And what the future of America is. Historically, the party in power loses a lot of the seats and the majority in Congress during the midterms. So we're still going to keep an eye out on that. And if that happens, Trump's administration, his administration agenda is basically over. What are the Democrats going to concede to Trump? Nothing. We could barely get stuff done when we controlled the House, the Senate, even the courts. I don't know. We're gonna have to look to the future. Oh, I just spilled my water. We're gonna have to look to the future a little bit. But yeah, and I'll just reiterate, these are just some of my takeaways from the election. I'm not a theorist. Like I said, I'm just connecting the dots, and that's what I see, and that shouldn't be wrong. But yeah. Like this, leave a comment. Yeah, leave a comment or email me or text me or anything on what you think about these situations, about this election, about Charlie Kirk, CK, slang for Charlie Kirk, the Epstein files, anything. You know, I got a lot more ideas, but those are just ideas, and I'm gonna leave that off the video for now. But there's just so much more to discuss, and so leave a comment what you think. If I'm kind of on track, maybe off track, did I miss something? Should I have included, something? Was I misleading? Maybe. I want to hear you guys' feedback a little bit too. Even if this was helpful a little bit, and maybe a lot of people are watching this right now, and you didn't know much about this election, and that's okay, and that's the point of me doing this. Is I do hear a lot about it. Might as well talk about it, get the word out there. And yeah, it is opinionated to my opinions, but I try to be fair. I try to be reasonable. Like I said, I try to look at both sides, and that's just what I see. Yeah, I see a lot of money coming in. Okay, might trace this money back. Who does it benefit? Why are they being benefited? Stay curious.